Hello and welcome to week 11. We will be going over public relations, press releases, sales promotions, and advertising types. And there will be two items due this Saturday at April 11th at 11:59 p.m., so midnight. And it will be our first discussion 1, and assignment 14. So, public relations, the definition of public relations is the practice of managing the spread of information between a product, a company, organization, or brand and the public or stakeholders. Some of the functions of public relations is to promote goodwill and build trust, to lobby for the good of the company, promote positive brand image, manage publicity, and to maintain investor relations. The tools and tactics for public relations is to create press kits, drafting and distributing press releases, which we'll get into a little later, speaking at events as a company representative, sponsoring events, giving back to the community, creating publications or newsletters, building relationships with the media, so that could be radio or news, communicating with the public during a crisis, providing peer consultation, image management for company leadership. So there's a lot of tools and tactics involved with public relations. The benefits of public relations is, while advertising is directly paid for by the company, it's therefore can be considered suspect to its credibility, right? There could be some little bit of false advertisement there. However, with public relations, it facilitates messaging such as a newspaper article or television news story. These are communicated through third-party sources and are viewed as more credible. Also, some of these other tactics here, giving back to the community, building relationships, communicating with the public during a crisis, speaking at events, that's a lot more authentic than advertising. So an example, I have a few examples here of some different types of public relations. One example is Star Wars, which is a social media example, passing the box office baton to the Avengers. So they had this social media post on Twitter: from a galaxy far, far away to Earth's mightiest heroes, congratulations on the biggest opening weekend in history. And then there was more underneath. So this particular piece of public relations, so what happened was the Avengers Infinity War, don't know if any of you guys have seen it, super good movie, shattered Star Wars The Force Awakens record for the biggest opening weekend ever, and it grossed over $250 million. Lucasfilms, the studio that created and produced Star Wars, we all know who Lucasfilms is, they weren't bitter about it though. So instead, they were proud of their friends at Marvel Studios and sent them the tweet congratulating them on their success. So by applauding them for their incredible accomplishment, Star Wars earned the respect of movie lovers and received media coverage for its gesture. So by them kind of being the nice guy and congratulating their so-called competitor, it created a sense of trust with that brand. The second example here is Lyft and Netflix, called Strange Mode. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Stranger Things. Really good series on Netflix. And there's a YouTube video here. Let's see if I can get it to work for you guys. Otherwise, you'll have to view it on your own here.
Hey, how are you? My name's Will. I'm Will.
Nice to meet you, Will. I'm Danny.
David, nice to meet you guys. We all buckled in? All right. This area right here actually reminds me a lot of where I grew up. It'd be like a rock quarry back there. Me and my buddies used to ride bikes like till like 9 at night. Supposed to be playing D&D later. Oh yeah? Yeah. You ever played? Oh man, it's really strange. I don't know what that's lots of
You
dogs.
have arrived at your destination.
No, we haven't.
You have arrived at your destination.
Let's see if I can find a safe place to pull over for a second. Like maybe I can reset it or something. Oh, man. Let me just pull it here for a sec.
Okay.
Oh, man. I'm feeling lightheaded. Oh, God. Suddenly my stomach's feeling weird. Let's see a sec. You okay? Stranger Things. What is happening? Yes. Yes.
Please don't.
I don't know. Is it a waffle?
It's a waffle.
I mean, how good was that, right? All right, so with over 360,000 people who binge watch Stranger Things, it's season 2, within a day of its release, it's clear the show created unprecedented amounts of hype leading up to its premiere date. One of the stunts that built up this hype was Lyft and Netflix's Strange Mode prank. By immersing Lyft customers in an environment that was as terrifyingly strange and eerily similar to Hawkins, Indiana, they made Storm Ranger Things fans feel like they were actually in the Upside Down. The last example I have for you here is marketing communication for Old Spice Paper Blazer ad, and it was actually an ad in a magazine. So when fragrance brands advertise in magazines, they usually show off their aromas by drenching an ad with their latest cologne or perfume, right? For those of you who read magazines. But Old Spice realized people usually don't enjoy unexpectedly pungent scents when they're flipping through their favorite magazine. How many of you guys get annoyed with that and you're like, ugh, headache? So Old Spice gently ribbed other fragrance brands by inserting a paper blazer doused in their new cologne Captain in their print ad in GQ magazine. So see the paper blazer here? Then they wrote about how these paper blazers can help men attract attention not only with trendy style, but also with a masculine smell. So humor and cleverness is one of the best ways to appeal to your audience and gain earned media attention. So that's the Captain ad right there. Okay, moving on to press releases. A press release is an official announcement, written or recorded, that an organization issues to the news media and beyond. Sometimes they're called press statements, news release, or media release, but it's all the same thing, press release. I always call it press release. So in a press release, the heading should contain action verbs. The first paragraph should answer the who, what, why, and where, and the body should contain understandable language and a quote. There's always a quote in a press release. Usually when I see press releases, there's usually 2 quotes. So most press releases are just 1 page, so they're pretty short. Ultimately, companies want to provide enough information so that news outlets have sufficient material for publishing their own stories about whatever the company is announcing in the release. So press releases live in the public domain, which means your customers and prospective customers can see them. It's great for SEO as well. So instead of thinking of a press release solely as a ticketing to earning news coverage, you should also think of it as a valuable piece of marketing content, because you can reuse the information in that press release and put it in multiple places. So the format of a press release, it's usually the same. Title and italicized subheading to summarize the news location and news peg and opening line, 2 to 3 paragraphs to add information, so very short, 2 to 3 short paragraphs, bulleted facts or figures, company description at the bottom, and always contact information for immediate release at the top, because you want these news stations or news writers to contact you for further information for a further story. And then you always add a bunch of pound signs at the end, centered the bottom of the paper, to show the journalist that that's the end of the paper. So here's an example of a press release. See how short it is, and kind of the different main pieces of it here. So for immediate release, the date, contact information here. See how the second line is italicized. Bullets. There's quote in there about the company at the very bottom, and those pound signs. So you always want to make your headline irresistible, similar to a blog. You want to grab someone's attention. Short, simple, make it interesting. The first paragraph here, you convey the news value to the press. So the who, what, why, where, and how of your whatever it is you're talking about in your press release. It could be a launch for a product, an update, or development. In third paragraph is where you have a quote. Usually it's from a CEO or an executive leader or an owner of a company. Quoting key figures and authorities underlines the importance of your development. Number 4 down here, provide valuable background information on the subject. So this offers details that strengthen your narrative, like creative or noteworthy ways your company developed the project or announcement at hand, or when applicable, comment on future implications of your announcement. And then the last section here is you summarize the who and the what and what we call a boilerplate. So this boilerplate is something that you just kind of copy and paste on every single press release you do. If you do a joint press release with another company and they ask you for a boilerplate, that's what they're asking for. This last section right here. Short, sweet, about your company. So why would you write a press release, or what kind of different topics can you write a press release on? New product launches, mergers and acquisitions, updates to existing products, hosting or attending an event, opening a new office, or launching a second, third, or fourth location, introducing a new partnership, rebranding of any kind, promoting or hiring a new executive, or receiving an award. So some tips for publishing press releases after one is written. You want to publish to your basics here: website, blogs, all your social media platforms, and emails. Make sure you email your contact list. If you're doing a blog, or a press release with a partner, make sure the partner is doing the exact same thing and publishing on all their channels as well. You might want to reach out to specific journalists that cover stories in your industry and send them personalized messages. Email works best, or even a phone call. Send the release to top journalists the day before you publish it to give them time to craft a story around your press release. Sometimes they want notice. Sometimes even 2 to 3 days notice, like, hey, we're sending out this press release this Friday. The event is next weekend. Here's all the information if you want to talk further, and hopefully they get back to you and write a story on you. If you're publishing your press release on a distribution service like PR Newswire or Business Newswire, I've actually used PR Newswire or PR News. Avoid publishing it on hours such as 9 a.m. or 4 p.m., like on the clock. Most companies schedule their releases to go out on the hour, which means yours could kind of get lost in the shuffle. So think about a Twitter feed. If too many people post at the same time, it kind of gets lost in the feed. So always go at an off time, like maybe 9:10 or 4:05 or 4:55. Make it an off time, not on the hour. And if your press release does get picked up by the media, keep the buzz going and continue to share their stories and posts. So an example I have for you is when I worked for a nonprofit called Kathy's Legacy Foundation. I think I mentioned this briefly before at the beginning of the semester. They had a big partnership with the San Diego Humane Society based on domestic violence and abuse on animals and people. So they partnered together and they had a big press conference. And before the press conference, we wrote a press release to send out to all the news channels, hoping that these news channels and journalists would show up to the press conference later that week, or it was the following week. So developed a press release. We had 2 boiler points in there because we had the Humane Societies as well as ours. It was 1 page. I personally have a huge database of journalists because I do PR work on the side. So I have a database of about 120 journalists' email addresses. And a lot of them were specific for that industry, domestic violence, or specific for animal welfare. So I sent that out, and I had a handful of journalists contact me back and said, hey, we want to write a story about you, and we will definitely be at the news conference. So that was a way to get the news channels there. They were on all the major stations, and when they posted on their social media pages, then we would reshare like, KUSI posted about our event, our press release, our partnership, and we were able to republish that content and keep it going. We also, since we had so much traction on our social media post of the video, we did a boost in Facebook and created even more traction and got that going a lot more. All right, so that's kind of the overview of how press releases work. So now moving on to sales promotions. So sales promotions is a short-term external promotion designed to influence immediate purchase. The key phrases here are short term. Sales promotions are not designed to last forever. An immediate purchase. They are designed to create an incentive to that the customer purchases immediately. So some common types of sales promotions are free samples, coupons, price promotion, and frequent user programs. So think the free samples you get at Costco, right? Or maybe when you go to Panera or the coffee shop, you have a rewards app on your actual phone, and for every 10 coffees you get at Panera, you get the 11th one free. Contests, special events, discounts, and trade shows. So an example of a contest is Nathan Hot Dogs has a hot dog eating contest. I don't know how many times a year. And different breweries will have pint nights. So if you come in on maybe a slow night, and you buy a certain type of beer, then you get a keep the glass. So if you buy a pint, you get to keep the glass. There's a lot of those going around. Short term, so it was just Thursday from 6 p.m. to close. So some questions to ask yourself here. How many frequent users, loyalty punch cards, etc., program cards do you have? Why are you part of so many loyalty programs? Why are so many companies issuing loyalty cards? Ask yourself those questions. Something to think about as you're developing your marketing plan as well. So some of the benefits of sales promotions is that it balances demand against available inventory or capacity. Effectiveness can be measured. Promotional costs vary with volume, and it reduces risk of initial trial. So you'll notice on restaurants, breweries, wineries, maybe the slower nights are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They'll have more promotions on those nights trying to get people in. Okay, so personal sales is another type of sales promotion. And personal selling is the interaction between a frontline employee and a potential customer designed to influence a purchase. A key feature in business-to-business sales, also called B2B sales, is where purchases are larger, are made less often, and rely heavily on the company-client relationship. Common for products that are expensive, involve a lot of risk for the buyer, or in the business-to-business channel. So a couple examples would be a realtor and a car salesman. Personal selling often contains the following stages. There are 6 basic main stages for personal selling. 1 is prospecting, looking for potential customers, vetting potential customers. 2, the pre-approach, which is researching the prospect and determining the best mode of action. 3 is the actual approach, contacting the prospect, gaining their attention, and hopefully setting up a meeting. 4 is the presentation. presenting information and benefits to the prospect, and addressing any objections. 5 is closing, so obtaining the sale, closing the deal. And 6 is following up to ensure purchase satisfaction. So 6 stages of personal selling. Benefits of personal sales is personal selling can be completely customized for each customer and each purchase situation. A salesperson can develop a customized sales presentation for each prospect. The salesperson is also able to address any objections directly and immediately. So a good example of this is actually my social media marketing agency that I do. I follow these 6 steps here. And the benefit is that everything is customized for that individual customer. And if there are any objections or questions, then I can answer them right away because it's my company, right? Works best for products with a high enough selling price and profit margin to cover the cost of the sales employees. A good fit for products that are complex or require extensive explanation or customization for the client. Another good example is business to business. If you're hiring a very expensive piece of software, right? We're going to have some objections. You need to see a presentation. They're going to approach you. You need all the information, and it's expensive. All right, so that's personal sales. Next, we have advertising. So a basic definition for advertising is external communication that is paid for by the seller and promotes a product to potential customers. So something to ask yourself, what is the most memorable advertisement you've seen? Was it a billboard, a commercial, something in a print ad? Think about it. The functions of advertising, 3 main functions here, is to inform. Advertising can let the customer know that the products exist and can inform them of the product's attributes or benefits. Second is persuasion. This can be crafted to have persuasive element, which is helpful in the evaluation of alternative stage of the buyer behavior process. And lastly, remind and reinforce. This can serve to simply remind customers that the product exists. This works well when there is a high brand awareness of the product among the target market. So some of the categories for advertising is billboards, magazines, newspapers, although newspapers, it's mostly online newspapers, radio, television, and the internet. So here's kind of an example of a bunch of different internet advertisements. We all see those, right? And now social media advertising, really. I should add another bullet there. So how to set up an advertising campaign. These are just some basic steps here. Clarify the specific purpose behind the campaign, to inform, to persuade, or to remind. Ask yourself, why are we running this campaign? Set goals and objectives before the campaign so that you can measure whether or not you have met those goals. So asking yourself, what do we hope to accomplish? Decide what advertising medium or media you should use, as well as a specific media vehicle. So asking yourself, where should we run this ad? Deciding what content to include and what format to use. What should we put in the ad, right? Deciding what time of the year, month, week, and maybe even time of day to run the ad. When should we run the ad? So that's pretty important for like radio spots and television spots. Deciding on the length of the campaign and how many ads to run. So how often or how long should you run the ad? Check to see what goals and objectives have been met. So finally asking yourself, what response are we seeing and what changes do we need to make? So these are 2 pretty important slides when you're developing your marketing plan as well. So some of the trends in ad spending. Advertising spending is huge worldwide, with over $600 billion being spent on ads in 2018. So we know that that number is even higher now, 2 years later. Advertising as a whole has seen a steady growth, and it doesn't appear to be decreasing anytime soon. There's been an increase in internet ad spending. Global spending has grown 4 to 5% since the year 2010. Internet advertising has contributed all of the growth in global spend since the beginning of the decade. Increase in mobile ad spending. Mobile marketing has seen a huge growth, making up 67.3% of the digital ad spending and 29.2% of the total media advertising. With all the social media done on mobile now, I guarantee these numbers are significantly higher. And the decrease in newspaper ad spending, which we've all seen. Television advertising has held steady, but newspaper advertising has seen a decline. The Pew Research Center found that in 2017, 31% of all newspaper ad revenue was from digital sources. And again, that's going to be way higher now because that was numbers we were able to get from 3 years ago. A lot of ad spending is done on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those different social media channels, YouTube, a lot on Facebook right now, especially with everything going on. Oops, I had the same slide in there twice. And then lastly here, so that's kind of the end of the lecture there. Just a reminder, due this week is discussion 1, which is on special events and public relations, our first discussion, and assignment 14, which is on public relations and press releases. So I hope everyone has a great week. Again, and like always, feel free to email me with any questions at all. All right, talk to you soon.